Hey all, the devs are combating the recent light accidental buff with the Fortify changes to basically being able to tune the value of new Fortify per weapon skill so that light players are inherently going to be less tankier than heavy players. This will work at a surface level, but the underlying problem that this introduces is rends will affect heavy players more than light players as well, which will inherently make it so that heavy is still not and medium are still not as tanky as light classes in certain setups, and I think this could be easily fixed by changing rend's values to be old rend, but then significantly decreasing the amount of rend that they provide so that light players are affected by old rend while not while not receiving as many buffs by new rend. This will basically make it so that if you're a light player, you are actually going to be a light player. You're not going to be tanky whatsoever when it comes to those fortifies. You'll take increased damage, but then for that, you have the extra mobility. And that's the trade off that they have to consider, considering light players can basically out kite any medium or heavy player, given the fact that they have more stamp, like they have better escape inherently to that class. In terms of they have done this before too with Void Gauntlet. They have changed Void Gauntlet from originally being old rend to be moved over to new friend, but then doubled the actual value of the ability. In terms of what this actually did, on this left tab, I have the old value. On this new tab, I have the new value. And if you look at these, the heavy did not change that much, but the light versus VG got significantly tankier, which how this got affected in terms of meta. People stopped using VG as much across the board because it just doesn't feel as impactful. Along with the passive freedom that everyone's given, it doesn't feel like VG does that as much anymore, and people have been starting to move away from it. As so, I think this will effectively be a fairly good change. There won't be these weird circumstances where you have to like overcome in big punishment, and besides the shirking fort, but I think that's acceptable because shirking fort was completely overtuned before. An elemental version kind of opens yourselves up to other things. So I think this is overall good direction, but the main thing you have to worry about here, if you're from a dev perspective, is rends won't affect light players as much. So if I'm versus a light like a healer and I put rend on him because the guy is not dying when he's in the sacred ground, that's actually not going to really help me kill the person that is in that sacred ground. They will effectively, like, if you're putting on the max Void Gauntlet Rend, which is about the biggest source of Rend from an individual weapon in the game right now, a light player will only take about 7% more damage, which is not very significant, and could still out heal you even though they would necessarily have less fortify than other classes as a whole. So even though they're going to be buffing these values, I still think it will make it so that light is an inherent problem in the game because light can just outkite everything. And a simple solution to all of this would basically be reverting the new fortify to being applied to rend values so that so that rend itself is working off an old fortify, but then reducing the power of rends overall to be more in line with the current changes, so that way light players are as affected by rend as heavy players and medium players, etc., which will basically inherently make it so that you're incentivized to go heavy if you want to be tankier to things across the board, and not just if you're trying to use a class with fortify. And that's it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.